Idlin, a move that has taken the city by surprise and sent shockwaves throughout the entire political landscape, Mayor Tiffany Henyard has made the difficult and shocking decision to step away from her duties as the city's leader. Her resignation comes amidst increasing pressure from protesters who have grown vocal in their demands for change, as well as personal threats that have shaken her to her core. With protests escalating into violent confrontations and citizens growing impatient with what they perceive as her failure to meet their expectations, Henyard's decision to temporarily halt her duties has left the public in disbelief. But this move wasn't just a knee-jerk reaction. It's the culmination of a much deeper, more painful journey that has been building for years. To understand why Henyard made this dramatic decision, we must first examine her life story, one that is deeply rooted in struggle, resilience, and the desire to bring about real change. Born into a working-class family, Tiffany Henyard's early life was far from easy. She grew up in a neighborhood plagued by poverty and crime, surrounded by individuals who struggled to make ends meet and felt neglected by society. Her family wasn't wealthy by any measure, and from a young age, Henyard saw the stark contrast between her life and the lives of others who seemed to have more opportunities, more resources, and more access to the American dream. Her parents worked tirelessly to provide for their family, but no matter how hard they tried, it was never enough. Henyard's mother worked long hours as a nurse, while her father did everything from manual labor to odd jobs just to put food on the table. Despite their exhausting work schedules, they instilled in their children the importance of education and community. They taught Henyard that success wasn't about wealth. It was about the strength of your character, the willingness to fight for what was right, and the resolve to never give up. From an early age, Henyard knew that education was her ticket out of poverty. She devoured books, excelled in her studies, and fought hard to make something of herself despite the odds stacked against her. Unlike many of her peers who had given up on school or who lacked the resources to pursue higher education, Henyard saw education as a way to break the cycle of poverty and bring about lasting change. She put herself through college, working multiple jobs to pay for tuition and books, while never losing sight of her goal to serve her community. Her determination paid off when she earned a degree in political science and law, setting the stage for her entrance into the political world. But her journey into politics wasn't an easy one. In fact, it was fraught with obstacles. Henyard entered a political arena that was overwhelmingly dominated by older, more established men, many of whom viewed her as an outsider, an upstart who didn't belong. Her journey was filled with setbacks and challenges. She faced rampant sexism and racism, and it seemed like every step forward she made was met with resistance. In many ways, Henyard was breaking through the glass ceiling with each decision she made, carving out space for herself in an industry that often dismissed the voices of young women of color. But through it all, she remained steadfast in her commitment to the people, knowing that her place in politics was not just about her own success, but about the future of countless others who had been silenced for too long. Her big break came when she was elected to the city council, where she quickly gained a reputation for being a voice of the people, a tireless advocate for the marginalized communities that had been systematically overlooked. She pushed for policies that would benefit the poor, the working class, and communities of color. She advocated for increased funding in education, healthcare, and affordable housing. Her focus was on the people who had long been forgotten by the political elite. It wasn't long before her impressive track record caught the attention of even more influential figures. Her rise through the ranks was nothing short of meteoric. Soon, she was running for mayor. Her campaign was built on promises of hope, equity, and justice for the city's underserved population. She spoke to the fears and desires of the working-class citizens who felt abandoned by politicians who had come before her. And in an election that shocked many, Tiffany Henyard emerged victorious, becoming the first woman and person of color to hold the office of mayor in her city's history. However, while her victory was historic, it also marked the beginning of an entirely new set of challenges. Henyard entered office with great optimism, but she quickly realized that the political landscape was not as welcoming as she had hoped. The very system she sought to change was resistant to reform. The powerful elites, political opponents, and even some of her own colleagues were bent on blocking her efforts for change. Her time as mayor was filled with constant political infighting, media attacks, and backroom deals that sought to undermine her authority. The fight she had once been so passionate about now felt like an endless battle against an establishment that seemed intent on holding onto its power at all costs. Despite the challenges, Henyard continued to press forward, passing policies that benefited the city's most vulnerable citizens. She introduced initiatives to increase affordable housing, invest in education, and create job opportunities in impoverished neighborhoods. Yet the public's expectations of her were impossible to meet. As her popularity grew, so did the pressure on her shoulders. She was no longer just a politician. She had become a symbol of hope for a city that desperately needed change. But as with many politicians who rise to power on the backs of their promises, Henyard found herself caught in the crossfire of conflicting interests. The same protesters who once cheered for her now voiced their discontent with her perceived failure to make enough immediate change. They demanded more, faster, and louder, and as the demands mounted, so did the threats against her. The pressure from the media and the public became suffocating. What had once been peaceful protests in the streets escalated into riots. Her political opponents seized on the unrest, accusing her of being ineffective and out of touch. But the real tipping point came when the threats against Henyard became more personal, more dangerous. The messages she received were no longer just political criticism. They were direct threats to her life and the lives of her family members. The constant barrage of hate, coupled with the mounting physical danger, became too much to bear. Despite her unshakable resolve, Henyard realized she could not continue in this environment. Her emotional and mental health were deteriorating. She was losing the fight not just for her city, but for herself. In a tearful and candid address to the public, she made the agonizing decision to step down from her duties as mayor, citing the constant threats against her safety and the immense pressure as reasons for her temporary hiatus. Her decision sent shockwaves through the city. Some hailed her bravery, acknowledging that even the strongest leaders can only withstand so much. Others criticized her for walking away from the fight, accusing her of abandoning the very people she promised to serve. But the truth is, Henyard's decision wasn't just about stepping down, it was about survival. It was about protecting herself, her family, and her mental health in the face of a political system that had demanded too much from her. Tiffany Henyard's story is one of unparalleled courage and resilience. She rose from the toughest of circumstances, overcoming obstacles that most people could never imagine. Born into a family that struggled to make ends meet, Henyard's determination to rise above her circumstances and fight for a better future for herself and others is the cornerstone of her journey. Her rise through the ranks of politics was nothing short of extraordinary. She was a beacon of hope for so many who believed that the system could be changed, that a new wave of leadership could bring about real, lasting transformation. Her presence was a symbol of the idea that hard work, integrity, and perseverance could overcome even the most entrenched systems of inequality. But despite her unmatched determination and vision for change, Henyard's journey ultimately led her to a heartbreaking realization. Sometimes, even the strongest leaders, those who have battled against every conceivable hardship, can be broken by the weight of their responsibilities. It's a truth that no one likes to confront, especially when the individual in question is someone who embodies the ideals of perseverance and self-sacrifice. The decision she made to step back from her duties as mayor was not an easy one. It wasn't about abandoning her post or accepting defeat. It was about survival. The pressures she faced were not merely political but psychological. The relentless barrage of criticism, the ever-growing expectations from her constituents, and the very real threats to her safety and that of her family took a toll on her mental health. It wasn't just about dealing with angry protesters or disgruntled political opponents. It was about facing the harsh truth that the very system she had fought so hard to change was pushing her to the brink. And therein lies the crux of Henyard's decision. She had entered the political arena with the belief that she could reshape the system, make it more just and equitable. But as she climbed higher, she came to realize that the political landscape itself was a battleground fraught with deep-rooted challenges that couldn't be overcome simply through good intentions or hard work. The toxic nature of the system began to reveal itself in ways she hadn't anticipated. She saw how power, greed, and self-interest were woven into the very fabric of the political structure, often stifling progress and undermining even the most well-intentioned leaders. In some ways, Henyard's departure from office was an act of clarity, a recognition that the system, as it stands, may be too broken to fix by any one person, no matter how determined they are. It's a bitter truth for anyone who enters public service with the hope of changing things for the better. The realization that one person, no matter how resilient, cannot single-handedly overhaul a system that has been designed to maintain the status quo is crushing. And yet, it is a realization that many leaders face after years of personal sacrifice and struggle. Now the question looms, will Tiffany Henyard return to the political stage, ready to face the challenges once more? Will she find the strength to rise again, armed with the lessons learned from her time in office and the resolve to continue her fight for change? Or has the system itself become so toxic, so resistant to transformation, that even someone as determined and passionate as Henyard can no longer thrive within it? The answer is uncertain. It's possible that Henyard will take this time away to reflect, to heal, and to rediscover her sense of purpose. Perhaps this will be the pause she needs to regain her strength and return to fight another day. But it's also possible that her time in politics has taken its toll in ways that may be irreversible. The weight of the constant scrutiny, the threats, and the emotional exhaustion could have forever changed her perspective on leadership and public service. Regardless of what the future holds, one thing is certain: Tiffany Henyard's decision to step down has left an indelible mark on the city, the political landscape, and the people who once believed in her. The very nature of her resignation speaks volumes about the state of contemporary leadership and the toll that public service can take on individuals, especially those who are striving for real change. Henyard's story is a stark reminder of the immense pressure faced by those who choose to serve in public office. It's easy for outsiders to criticize or place blame, to demand results without understanding the internal battles that leaders face. But Henyard's decision sheds light on the personal costs of leadership that are often overlooked. The demands on public figures to meet the expectations of a divided and often impatient public are enormous. The weight of responsibility can easily become overwhelming, and the personal sacrifices can be grueling. Leaders in public office are constantly walking a tightrope, balancing the needs of the people with their own mental and emotional well-being. Her story also highlights the flawed nature of the political system itself. While many citizens hold great hopes for change, they often fail to understand the magnitude of the forces at play. Forces that often resist transformation, regardless of how much a leader might want to change things. The system isn't just built to preserve the status quo, it's designed to wear down those who seek to disrupt it. The more you push, the more it pushes back, until eventually even the most determined individuals can find themselves emotionally drained and physically exhausted. But even in the face of this heartbreaking realization, Henyard's legacy may yet be one of profound impact. Perhaps her decision to step down will spark a larger conversation about the cost of leadership, the pressures faced by public servants, and the changes that need to be made in the system to allow leaders to thrive. Maybe her story will inspire others to reevaluate the demands placed on political figures and consider what kind of support and reform is needed to ensure that leaders can serve effectively without sacrificing their well-being. In the end, the real cost of leadership is not just the personal toll it takes on those who serve. It's the message it sends about the nature of the system itself. Tiffany Henyard's story is a cautionary tale, a call to action for all who care about the future of our democracy and the health of those who lead it. It challenges us to think critically about how we treat our leaders, what we ask of them, and whether the system is truly designed to foster the kind of transformative change that so many of us want to see. Time will tell whether Henyard will return to the political arena or whether her story will serve as a warning sign to the next generation of leaders. But regardless of her next steps, her decision will continue to reverberate throughout the city and beyond, reminding us all of the true cost of leadership in today's volatile world. Thanks for watching. If you found this story insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay informed, stay inspired, and let's continue pushing for the change we need. See you next time.